The complexities of interstellar competitions go beyond just the convoluted regulations, high risk of injury, and the unfortunate selection of host planets that seem to despise visitors. Consider the instance when Earth was mistakenly entered into the Grand Intergalactic Tournament of Resilience. A clerical error by a middle-ranking official, endowed with 8 eyes and an equal number of dubious ethical standards, led to a catastrophic typo. The registration form declared Earth invincible when it should have read insignificant niche. Consequently, Earth was signed up for a contest reserved for the universe's hardiest species, who faced simulated Deathworlds ranked from Class 1 to Class 13, Class 1 causing slight discomfort and Class 13 capable of rearranging your internal organs. Now back to the Earthlings. Are we certain this list is accurate? Questioned Kovacs-37, a slender alien who hovered anxiously next to the digital display of contestants. Kovacs's job was primarily to avoid catastrophes, and the inclusion of humans did little to reassure him. The supervisor, a creature named Glur resembling a disgruntled Ottoman, scrutinized the list. Humans from Terra? He queried, giving the word an air of suspicion. Are they a threat? Not in the slightest, Kovacs replied, his complexion turning a nervous shade of aquamarine. They're quite soft, make a lot of noise, and have a history of recreational cliff diving. They even had a pastime where they would jump from aircraft for fun. So, they're amusingly delicate? Glur pondered. Excruciatingly so, confirmed Kovacs. Thus, humans were allowed to join the contest, not out of any expectation of their endurance, but because their participation was anticipated to provide comic relief. The opening event was a grand display of hubris and excessive pyrotechnics. Races capable of enduring the cores of neutron stars, corrosive superstorms, and endless administrative meetings paraded with cosmic vanity. Then came the humans. Hello, greeted Greg, a human contestant in casual shorts and a t-shirt proclaiming, I survived Monday. He cheerfully waved, causing bafflement among the crowd. What's that sound it's making? Muttered a competitor from a species that communicated through silent mental anguish. I believe it's a greeting, another whispered back, visibly unsettled. Following Greg, the rest of the human team appeared, their faces ranging from slightly bewildered to visibly upset about the absence of coffee. The Galactic commentators couldn't hide their glee over the humans' potential for unintended humor. In the red corner, we have the Forks Goliaths, known for muscles that could bend steel, announced one broadcaster. And in the blue corner, we have Greg. Hello again, Greg chimed in as laughter spread throughout the cosmos. The competition kicked off on a Class 1 Deathworld, a planet so mild that its grass felt like foam. The air was tinged with the scent of fresh linen, and the native creatures were as threatening as dozing kittens. To most, this was nothing more than a gentle prelude. For Greg and his fellow humans, it was an unexpected adventure. Pancakes, Greg repeated, flipping an imaginary pancake in the air with his spatula. Earth delicacy, great for morale. I brought mix and a portable griddle. Anyone interested? Blozek, the crystalline being shimmering with internal light, cocked his head, his facets catching the sunlight. You intend to cook during the survival challenge? He inquired, clearly puzzled by the humans' priorities. Absolutely, Greg nodded enthusiastically. See, where I'm from, a good breakfast can turn a whole day around. Plus, if we're gonna face boiling mud and insult-hurling plants, I'd rather do it on a full stomach. Beside him, Linda was busy engaging in a stare-down with a venomous lizard, which seemed taken aback by her unflinching gaze. This guy, she pointed at the lizard, he just needs someone to listen to him. Right, buddy? The lizard blinked slowly, clearly unsure of what to make of the human, who treated it like a disgruntled pet rather than a threat. Meanwhile, Greg began setting up his griddle, scattering a few drops of water on it to test the heat. Around him, the other contestants prepared their gear, their faces a mix of confusion and curiosity as they watched the human make breakfast on a battlefield. Blozek floated closer, intrigued despite himself. Your species is odd, he remarked, watching the bubbles form on the first pancake. You find comfort in the mundane amidst chaos. Greg flipped a pancake, offering Blozek a smile. Mundane's got its charm, he said. Keeps us grounded. Plus, everyone's gotta eat, right? Even on Class 5 Deathworlds. The other competitors, despite their superior technology and evolutionary advantages, found themselves drawn to Greg's cooking station. The smell of pancakes began to mix with the sulfuric air of the boiling mud pits, creating an oddly comforting aroma. Linda, having negotiated a truce with the venomous lizard, joined Greg. She began setting up a makeshift table with napkins and syrup. Come on over, she called to the other contestants. Free pancakes and Earth hospitality. The Gorak alien, still munching on the granola bar Greg had offered earlier, approached hesitantly. Your food is simple but soothing, he admitted admitted accepting a pancake from Greg. It is unexpected, as the competitors gathered, sharing pancakes and stories of their home worlds. Kovacs, now thoroughly confused but entertained, relayed the scene to the galactic audience. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications, he announced, what we're witnessing might just redefine the spirit of this competition. The humans, with their bizarre blend of resilience and breakfast foods, are not just surviving, they're thriving, and they're bringing others along for the ride. By the time the rain began to clear, Greg and Linda had not only fed their fellow contestants, but also fostered a sense of camaraderie among them. The tournament officials, watching from afar, began to question their own understanding of what it meant to be resilient. As the challenges progressed, it became clear that Earth's invincible typo might not have been so far off the mark. Whether through culinary diplomacy or sheer stubbornness, the humans were turning what was supposed to be a merciless competition into something unexpectedly uplifting. In Class 7, the challenges were no longer simply tests of physical endurance and mental toughness. They were designed to push beings to their existential limits. The atmosphere was corrosive, the landscape littered with geological traps that could swallow a creature whole, and the predators were not just wild but genetically enhanced to be perfect killing machines. Greg, looking over the daunting scenery with a backpack slung over his shoulder, chuckled. This looks like a rough one. Better keep the syrup handy. Huh. Linda, adjusting her cap, nodded enthusiastically. Nothing a good stack of pancakes can't help us handle. Ready to make this world a little more hospitable. As they set off into the hellish terrain, a group of hulking Threx warriors, their bodies covered in scales that could deflect laser blasts, watched in disbelief. They're marching into the acid Fong forest. For fun? One of them murmured, his voice a mix of fear and disbelief. Seems so, his companion replied, shaking his head. And they're taking a breakfast kit with them. Meanwhile, Kovacs and Glur, observing from the safety of the commentary booth, were now beyond surprised. They were in awe. This isn't just resilience. This is outright defiance of the natural order, Kovacs said, his multiple eyes wide as he watched the humans cheerily set up a campfire near a river that was known to vaporize organic material. Greg tossed a pancake onto a portable griddle, flipping it with a practiced flick of his wrist. Who's up for breakfast by the lava stream? He called out, his voice carrying over the ominous gurgles of the deadly river. Linda, sitting cross-legged as she tossed bits of jerky to a creature that resembled a cross between a scorpion and a tiger, smiled. Just add a bit of spice to life, right Greg? As they continued their bizarre picnic, competitors from across the galaxy started to gather around, drawn by the surreal scene of normalcy in the midst of chaos. A Zurian gladiator, previously feared across multiple systems for his mercilessness in combat, timidly approached the humans. May I try one of those? He gestured towards a stack of pancakes, his voice unsure. Of course, buddy, Greg replied, handing over a plate with a generous drizzle of syrup. Everyone's welcome at our table. The Zurian tentatively took a bite and his eyes widened. It's good, very good. Word spread quickly, and soon, Greg and Linda were hosting an impromptu breakfast for a diverse group of aliens, each more deadly and fearsome than the last, now united in their curiosity and fascination with Earth cuisine and Earth courage. Are they just going to feed their way through the tournament? Glur wondered aloud, unable to hide a grudging respect. It appears so, Kovacs chuckled. And it might just work. Look at them. They've turned a Deathworld into a diner. As the morning progressed, the deadly predators of the forest seemed to hesitate, as if confused by the lack of fear and the abundance of laughter and syrup. Even the acid Fong vines, notorious for their lethal touch, seemed to recoil slightly as Linda strung up festive lights around their camp. Tomorrow's Class 8, Greg mused as he served up another round of pancakes. Think they'll have coffee? I could use a good cup. Linda laughed, tossing a pancake to a bemused alien. Only if they want to see what we're really capable of. The tournament officials watched, uncertain whether to be amused or terrified. One thing was clear, Earth was rewriting the rules of the Grand Intergalactic Tournament of Resilience, one pancake at a time. Hang on, buddy, not during dinner, he yelled, just as Linda swung her backpack at the creature, hitting it squarely on the snout. The beast, clearly not used to being on the receiving end of such blunt force, recoiled with a pained screech and retreated back into the storm. Kovacs and Glur were speechless, watching the scene unfold with disbelief. Did she just fend off a delta-winged hunter with a backpack? Kovacs stammered. Glur, his voice filled with a mix of awe and resignation, replied, yes, and I believe it was stuffed with socks and snacks. Incredible. Back on the field, Linda adjusted her hat, grinning. These windstorms are nothing. Remember when we had to chase our tent down the beach in that hurricane? Greg laughed, securing the last stake of their tent. Yeah, this is almost relaxing compared to that. Good thing we packed extra stakes. As they settled down, the rest of the competitors were not faring faring nearly as well. The wind was tossing them around like leaves, and their sophisticated gear and strategies seemed useless against the primal forces of nature unleashed in this simulated death world. One by one, other contestants began to drop out, their technologies and techniques unable to cope with the sheer unpredictability and wildness of the environment. Meanwhile, Greg and Linda were roasting marshmallows over a small, shielded fire, seemingly oblivious to the chaos around them. "This is some strong wind, huh?" Greg shouted over the howling gales, offering a perfectly toasted marshmallow to Linda. "You're telling me," she replied, her voice muffled by the wind, "but it's perfect for flying kites. Too bad we didn't bring one." The scene was so absurd, so out of sync with the dire stakes of the tournament, that it began to unsettle even the seasoned alien veterans. Here were two humans, treating one of the most dangerous environments in the galaxy like a slightly unruly camping trip. As the tournament officials conferred nervously, it was clear that something unprecedented was happening. "Should we do something about them?" one official asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Glur shook his head slowly. "What can we do? Disqualify them for not taking it seriously enough? They're surviving, thriving, even using methods that defy all our predictions and preparations." The crowd, having recovered from their initial shock, now watched the humans with a mixture of fear, respect, and a growing sense of camaraderie. Whispers filled the air, a mix of languages and sentiments, all centering on the bizarre effectiveness of the human approach. "They're rewriting the rules," another competitor remarked, watching as Greg used his granola bar to coax a small, windswept creature into his hand. "Maybe we've been looking at this all wrong." As the competition progressed, it became clear that Greg and Linda were not just participants but catalysts for a deeper understanding among the galaxy's varied beings. Their simple, human-centric tactics, based on camaraderie, resilience, and a profound ability to find joy in adversity, were becoming a lesson for all. In a universe where survival was often predicated on strength, cunning, and advanced technology, the humans were showing that sometimes laughter, good food, and sheer stubbornness could be just as powerful. As the tournament continued, many began to wonder not just how far the humans would go, but what they could learn from them. The leader, a particularly large ravager with scars etched across his chitin, narrowed his eyes. "No," he growled, his voice low and grudgingly respectful. "They're not insane. There's something else. Something more." Back at the human camp, Greg was fiddling with a small, portable radio, trying to catch some music amidst the chaotic environmental noise. "Nothing like a good tune to set the mood," he said cheerily, twisting the dial until a crackly pop song emerged, barely audible over the sound of the screaming wind. Linda, meanwhile, was rigging up a makeshift shelter using a tarp and some rope. "This'll keep off the fire hail, at least for a bit," she noted, hammering a stake into the ground which immediately melted but somehow held firm. "We'll need marshmallows to toast later. You got any left?" Greg rummaged through his backpack. "Just a few, but I've got chocolate and graham crackers too. We can make s'mores if we survive till evening." As the Thyan ravagers watched, hidden behind their rocks, the spectacle of these humans casually planning a campfire treat in the midst of apocalyptic conditions solidified their dread. They had trained in the art of survival against the most terrifying creatures and environments the galaxy had to offer, but nothing had prepared them for this level of sheer, audacious calm. "They don't even see the danger," whispered one younger ravager, his mandibles clacking nervously. "How do you fight something that doesn't acknowledge fear?" The leader watched as Greg and Linda set up their camp, the fire hail bouncing off their hastily erected shelter. "You don't," he said finally. "You learn from it. Maybe we've been looking at survival all wrong." On the commentator's platform, Kovacs and Glur were equally flabbergasted. "They're setting up camp," Kovacs said, his voice a mixture of awe and disbelief. "In the middle of Class 13, they're planning to make s'mores." Glur nodded, his eyes wide. "They've turned survival into a leisure activity. They've embraced the chaos so fully that it's become part of their normal. I'm not sure if we should be terrified or impressed." "Both," Kovacs decided. "Definitely both." As the competition drew to a close, the event organizers were left scrambling to revise their definitions of resilience and adaptability. The humans had not just survived. They had thrived by rewriting the fundamental rules of engagement, turning what was meant to be a brutal test of endurance into an absurdly cheerful adventure. When the final whistle blew, signaling the end of Class 13, Greg and Linda packed up their campsite with casual efficiency. The Thyan ravagers, without a word, conceded the match. They hadn't been defeated by superior force or strategy. They had been outlasted by an unshakable spirit. As Greg and Linda walked back to the main arena, their spirits high and their bucket hat and makeshift sun hat respectively in place, the crowd, which had once laughed at their inclusion, now stood in respect. The humans hadn't just survived the grand intergalactic tournament of resilience. They had transformed it. "Think they'll let us come back next year?" Linda asked as they approached the cheering spectators. Greg shrugged, a grin spreading across his face. "Why not? I bet we could even bring a kite next time." And as they lifted the trophy, a bizarre, twisted piece of metal that somehow looked exactly right in their hands, the galaxy realized that humanity might just be the strangest, most baffling force of nature they had ever encountered. And perhaps, just perhaps, the most inspiring. Glur finally broke the silence, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and disbelief. I have no words. They just walked past it. They actually just walked past it." Kovacs, whose multiple eyes had not blinked once during the entire ordeal, finally managed to stutter out, Are they even real? Are we sure they're not some kind of advanced holograms?" On the field, Greg and Linda continued on their way, seemingly unfazed by the monstrous creature that could have easily ended their journey with a single bite. They chatted about the scenery, Linda pointing out a particularly fiery geyser as if it were a tourist attraction. "This is quite the hike, huh?" Greg said, adjusting his makeshift sun hat. "Definitely beats our last vacation," Linda replied with a laugh. "Remember when we got lost and ended up in that bird sanctuary after dark?" The comparison seemed ludicrous given their current environment, but it was exactly this kind of ordinary banter that left the rest of the contestants baffled and the audience riveted. Back in the stands, the Thyan leader watched with a growing respect that bordered on reverence. "We have trained for centuries," he murmured to his closest advisor. "We've honed our bodies and minds to the pinnacle of our potential. And yet, these humans, they waltz through chaos like it's a stroll in the park." His advisor, equally puzzled, nodded slowly. "They do not conquer, they coexist. They do not dominate, they adapt. And they do not fear, they accept." As the competition progressed, it became evident that Greg and Linda weren't just anomalies. They were a phenomenon. Their approach, blending sheer ignorance of danger with an unshakable confidence, was rewriting what it meant to compete in and observe the grand intergalactic tournament of resilience. When the final obstacle arrived, a gauntlet that combined all previous challenges into a nightmarish landscape of hazards, the commentators had run out of ways to express their astonishment. The area was a tumult of disjointed gravity fields, acid rain, and thermal vents blasting scorching steam, with the added danger of periodic meteor strikes. Greg looked over the course, then at Linda. "Ready for the home stretch?" Linda nodded, pulling out 2 pairs of goggles. "Let's show them how it's done." With a casual air that contradicted the peril they were about to face, they equipped their goggles, checked their supplies, and set off. They dodged geysers, sidestepped meteor impacts, and even played a quick game of rock, paper, scissors while waiting for a particularly large acid cloud to disperse. The galaxy watched as these 2 humans transformed the deadliest course in the universe into just another adventure. Their resilience wasn't just a matter of physical survival, it was a testament to their spirit. As they crossed the finish line, the audience erupted into an applause that was more than just celebratory, it was reverential. Other competitors, even the formidable Thyans, came forward not just to congratulate them, but to learn. Greg, sweaty and covered in soot, accepted the accolades with a bewildered smile. "Didn't think we'd get this much attention," he whispered to Linda. Linda, her face lit up with excitement, squeezed his shoulder. "Just goes to show, sometimes the best way to handle the universe's curveballs is to keep walking and keep smiling." And so, as the dust settled on the now legendary Class 13 challenge, it was clear that the story of Greg and Linda would be told and retold across the galaxy, not as a tale of human triumph, but as a lesson in living fearlessly, joyfully, and above all, humanly. "I guess we'll need a bigger garage," Linda chuckled, looking amusedly at the gargantuan trophy. The overseer's many eyes widened, unsure how to process the casual demeaning of the galaxy's most revered award. "This trophy," it explained with a quivering voice, struggling to maintain dignity, "represents the pinnacle of endurance, cunning, and resilience across the cosmos. It is not just an object, it is a symbol of ultimate survival." Greg nodded appreciatively, scratching his chin. "Oh, I get it, it's important. Well, we'll make sure it has a good spot then. Maybe hang some nice lights around it, make it cozy." Linda nodded in agreement. "Yeah, some fairy lights, maybe a few pictures from our trip here. It'll be a great conversation starter." The crowd, finally finding their voices, began to murmur among themselves. The shock of the humans' nonchalant acceptance of the universe's highest honor was giving way to a begrudging admiration. Some began to whisper, others pointed, and slowly, a smattering of applause broke out. A particularly stoic Jorvian general, known for never showing emotion, started clapping with a solemn respect. "To face death with a smile," he boomed, his voice carrying across the Colosseum. "That is the true spirit of resilience." The applause grew louder, and other species joined in, their earlier disbelief turning into celebration of an unprecedented victory. The energy in the Colosseum shifted from confusion to jubilation. Linda waved at the crowd, her smile broad. "Thank you, everyone. We had a blast." Greg, still somewhat bemused by the fuss, added, "Yeah, it's been wild. Couldn't have asked for a better camping trip." The overseer, finally understanding that the humans' unorthodox methods and attitudes were exactly what the tournament needed to shake its millennial traditions, floated closer with a formal bow. "We are honored by your participation," it said, voice steadier now. "Your approach to the challenges has opened our eyes. The galaxy will remember this event for eons." Greg shrugged, offering a friendly grin. "Glad to help. Just doing what we do best, I guess." Linda nodded, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Just living life, one adventure at a time. As the ceremony concluded, the humans were escorted off the stage, their names echoing through the cosmos, not just as winners of the grand intergalactic tournament of resilience, but as living legends who redefined courage and adventure. Their story, passed down through generations of countless species, wasn't just about survival. It was about thriving in the face of the impossible, about turning fear into fun, and about the incredible human spirit that, once unleashed, was as boundless and profound as the universe itself. And so, as Greg and Linda returned to Earth, their lives resumed with a new trophy in their garage and a galaxy's worth of stories to tell. The universe, having witnessed their journey, was never quite the same. As the human ship drifted back toward Earth, the galaxy was left to reckon with the seismic shifts that had just occurred. Throughout countless star systems, leaders convened emergency meetings, scientists revisited their theories on survival and resilience, and philosophers debated the enigmatic nature of human indifference to cosmic dangers. In a grand auditorium on the planet Zenther, a forum of alien leaders gathered to discuss the implications of the tournament's outcome. "We need to understand this human phenomenon," declared a towering Ixthian general, his voice resonant and grave. "Their approach could redefine strategic doctrines across all sectors," added a real diplomat, her multiple arms waving animatedly. "Imagine deploying human-style improvisation in interspecies negotiations." Meanwhile, educational institutions across the universe scrambled to update their curricula. "We need to incorporate human studies into our programs," announced the dean of the Galactic Academy of Science and Philosophy. "Their ability to handle existential threats with such casual disregard is unprecedented." In quieter corners of the universe, smaller communities felt a mix of fear and admiration. "Did you see how they just walked past that apex predator?" asked a young novice at a remote monastery. "As if it were just another windy day." At a spaceport bar frequented by travelers of all species, the event was the only topic of conversation. "They tied their victory trophy to their spaceship like it was an oversized holiday ornament," chuckled a grizzled pilot, shaking his head in disbelief. Even the predators of Class 13 worlds were reportedly unsettled. Rumors swirled of a creature, once considered the terror of its ecosystem, now seen hesitating before attacking. "It's as if it's questioning its own place in the food chain," reported a field researcher, her camera feed showing the bewildered beast. As Earth came into view, Greg looked over at Linda with a smile. "Pretty wild trip, huh?" "Definitely," Linda agreed, securing the trophy once more as the ship entered Earth's atmosphere. "Wonder what the neighbors will say when they see this in our yard." Back on Earth, life resumed with the usual hum of everyday normality, but for Greg and Linda, their garage now housed a relic of their incredible adventure, a symbol of human resilience that would eventually become the stuff of legend. They returned to their regular lives, unaware of the cosmic ripples their actions had caused. In the far reaches of space, the Galactic Council officially established the Human Protocol, a set of guidelines aimed at engaging with humans in a manner that could hopefully harness their unpredictability for the greater good of the galaxy. And as stars twinkled silently in the vast, dark expanse, the universe watched Earth with a new sense of wary respect, wondering what the humans would do next, fearing and hoping in equal measure that they might remain just whimsical and detached enough not to realize their own astounding potential.